You don't need more discipline. You need a routine that makes you feel safe. Because the reason you fall off isn't that you lack willpower. It's that your routine was built for an imaginary version of your life, the one where nothing ever goes wrong. What if missing a day isn't what breaks the habit, but what you tell yourself after? And what if the routine you're trying to build is accidentally training your brain to feel unsafe? So in this video, I'm gonna show you a science-backed framework that makes your routine support you on good days and bad days, so it stops feeling like prison and starts feeling like a foundation. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Veronika. Here I make videos on self-improvement, sustainable habits, and creating a life you love. Before we continue, I want to invite you guys to join my free weekly newsletter called Aligned. Every week, I send you an email with my personal reflections, lessons I'm learning, and things I don't always talk about here on YouTube. If you like this kind of exclusive content completely for free, you can join my weekly newsletter by clicking the link in the description. Alright, so let's start and talk about why our routines at some point start feeling like prison. Why does this happen? The thing is, there's this old definition of productivity and routine building that I used to follow for so many years, and it made me feel stuck. It burned me out, and at some point I felt completely lost because I lost sight of what was actually important to me. So the old definition of productivity, what I actually lived through, is productivity is maximizing output per unit of time, and routine is a control system. Rules. Prove you're doing life right. All of those definitions come from the industrial efficiency models, hustle culture, capitalist performance metrics, machine logic applied to humans. Problem: humans are not machines. Our nervous system doesn't respond well to constant optimization. When we start optimizing endlessly for maximum efficiency, we don't build a life we love. We build a system that's constantly telling us we're not enough. That is exactly what happened to me, and this is why I'm sharing this in today's video. Like, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. A routine should be your foundation, not a prison. And so that is why I propose a new definition of productivity and routine building backed by science. Productivity is the ability to consistently show up for your life without hating yourself. Your routines are not supposed to optimize every single moment. They're supposed to support you on both good days and bad days. So now that we've addressed that, let's actually talk about what makes a routine make you love your life. Here's the framework that I like to follow. First of all, you need to stop asking, what's the perfect routine? Because endless optimization, trying to reach perfection all the time in every single area, makes your nervous system feel really unsafe. Someone else is gonna look at what you're doing and they're gonna say, that's not perfect enough. And you end up being your own harshest critic. When we feel psychologically safe with our routines, our brain shifts from this survival mode into long-term thinking, zooming out creativity and consistency. And the problem is that most of us don't feel safe with our routines at all. Our routines are usually so rigid, and we expect this rigidity from ourselves and from the world. Rigid routines signal threat. If I fail, I'm bad. If I miss a day, I'm behind. But supportive routines signal safety. I know what to do when I'm tired. I won't abandon myself if today looks different. Let me give you a very relatable example right now to really understand how all of this works. I had such a good routine until I got sick, traveled, had a bad week, and then I fell off completely. I want you to look at the situation from a different perspective now. That wasn't a routine problem. That was a lack of safety in the system. What broke was not the habit, it was the re-entry point. Your routine only worked in ideal conditions, and so that is why when you got sick, when you traveled, when you had a bad week, you weren't really able to continue practicing this routine consistently. But life isn't perfect, and safety is created when your nervous system expects disruption and plans for it. When you set up a working out schedule, for example, you shouldn't just plan for the good days, for the ideal conditions, because let's be honest, life is often messy. If your routine only works if life is perfect, that's not a routine, it's a fantasy. Second, try to design your routines around anchors, not streaks. I talk about it a lot on my YouTube channel that streak-based motivation is often fragile, because the moment you skip a day, so you break your streak, you start feeling a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. But identity-based anchors, things that are rooted in your personal values, are way more resilient. And those things usually don't make you feel all of that shame and guilt. Anchors are things that stay no matter what. For example, for me, my anchors are movement of any kind, one nourishing meal, some form of reading, Spanish learning. All of those things are tied to my personal values. And I know that if I skip a day, it's okay. Like, I don't need to feel all of this guilt and shame. I can always come back to movement, for example, to my yoga practices. I can always take yoga with me. And that reminds me that safety comes from knowing what stays, even when everything else changes. Next, I really want you to build a bad day version of every habit, because this way, even on bad days, you will know what to do. Missing a day doesn't break your habit completely, but feeling like a failure does. This starts the cycle of shame, and shame creates avoidance, and avoidance breaks consistency. Let's say we have two people and they both miss a workout. Person A thinks, I ruined everything. And person B says, okay, tomorrow I'll do something gentle. Person B stays consistent, not because of discipline, not because they're punishing themselves. They trust themselves that they're gonna resume their routine because it's deeply rooted in their personal values, in who they are. Consistency isn't about never missing. It's about never abandoning yourself completely. So let's say you create a working out goal for yourself. And for example, this is what it looks like for me. Instead of just setting one goal, I want to work out 3 times a week for an hour, you create a good day version of this habit and a bad day version of this habit. And then the bad day version could be just a 10-minute stretch, or walking, or doing nothing without guilt. And here I really have to mention that you're not lowering your standards, you're protecting continuity. You don't restart your routine after life happens, you re-enter it. That is why I personally don't really like resets and rebrands, because they make you feel like you create this routine, this perfect version of it, and then you miss a day, you fall off, something happens, then you have to restart, you have to rebrand yourself, you have to become a completely different person. But you're just re-entering, you're continuing the same process. You don't need to reinvent yourself constantly. You just have to reconnect with your personal values and trust yourself that if it is your value, you're always going to come back and prove it to yourself. Look, Veronika, something happened, like life got busy and you missed, 2 yoga practices. That's fine. In 3 days, I'm gonna re-enter my habit and I'm gonna practice yoga. I don't need to shame myself, sit down and have this total rebrand of my life and my identity. No, I still value movement, but sometimes I have a lot of things on my plate, so I just don't have time to exercise, and that is okay. The goal isn't to never fall off. The goal is to feel safe enough to come back. And I think in general, rebranding and resetting, all of those things are really connected to us loving maximums, basically reaching for perfection, but minimums matter so much more than maximums in habit formation. Small, repeatable actions create identity change faster than any ambitious plan. And I know why we all love maximums, because they impress our ego. I used to be that person who would say, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. But this kind of thinking destroys consistency. Okay, now let's talk about defining what enough means for you in advance. If you don't understand what enough means for you, you don't schedule recovery. But recovery and rest are not optional. They're our biological need. If your routine doesn't schedule good quality rest, your body will schedule burnout for you. Your brain will seek cheap dopamine, like scrolling on your phone for hours and hours and hours, and then feeling even worse afterwards. I was that person who had no time to rest, but scrolled for 2 hours at night, guilty and exhausted. Because one of the reasons you feel so tired with your new perfect routine is because every day feels like a negotiation. What do I do when I feel low energy? What counts as enough today? A loving routine answers all of those questions in advance. A routine should minimize decisions because you already know what to do. It should reduce decision fatigue, not increase expectations. Because the more decisions we make every day, the worse our choices become. 5. Adapt your routine to seasons of life. Humans function in cycles, not straight lines. Energy cycles, hormonal cycles, emotional seasons. Rigid routines tell you that you should be the same every single day. And that is biologically false, especially for women. A routine that doesn't evolve and doesn't change with you will eventually break. It will eventually break you. So a person has this habit of daily movement, and they recently moved to a new city or even a new country. So before the move, they had that stable season where their routine was very clear. Like they would go to the gym, they had a fixed schedule, they did strength and cardio, and the consistency was really high. And that worked because the environment was stable, the energy was predicted, and all of the logistics were solved. The routine really matched the season of life. And now they moved to a new city, to a new country. So that is the transition season. Their new life looks very different. And so if this person expects from themselves to have the same routine, like I should still work out every single day, or I should still, go to the gym and have exactly the same routine, most likely what will happen is guilt, identity threat. They're gonna start thinking, I'm not disciplined anymore. And so that is why a good, loving routine adapts to your seasons of life. The goal doesn't change, you still value daily movement. The expression of that goal changes. You adapt your routine and you start walking while exploring the neighborhood. You carry boxes, and while doing that, maybe you do a few lunges. You do short little stretch sessions to regulate all the stress and help you with muscle fatigue after assembling all the furniture. Basically, what you're doing here is you're creating a new minimum for yourself instead of immediately jumping into maximums and feeling a lot of guilt and a lot of shame because your routine doesn't look perfect. And finally, your everyday routine will feel truly loving and supportive when productivity becomes a tool, not the goal. The thing is, hedonic adaptation shows that we normalize things very quickly. And what it means when we apply it to routine building is that today's perfect day, you did all of your habits, your routine looked absolutely perfect. It becomes tomorrow's bare minimum. And this way you're doing more and more and more, but you're never arriving. If I just optimize a little bit more, I'll finally feel good. But the feeling never comes because productivity alone doesn't produce meaning. That is why we often feel like I did everything I was supposed to do today, but I still don't feel good. If you always optimize for maximum efficiency, efficiency, this really kills all the joy. And joy is exactly what makes you want to come back to your routine. I think a lot of us are familiar with this phrase, I can't wait for the weekend so that I can escape my routine. If you feel like that about your routine, that is not structure, that's confinement. When your routine doesn't allow for humanity, it becomes a control system, not a support system. People stick with things that make them feel aligned with who they are, not with things that make them feel controlled. The goal of routine isn't discipline, it's a life you don't want to escape from. So that is why here are my questions for you. A healthy routine asks, does this help me enjoy my days? Does this support my values? Does this leave room for being human? And not, how much can I squeeze out of myself today? So now that you know how to build the everyday routine you'll actually want to come back to, the next step is understanding what goes into creating a life you love. So to learn all the main principles I like to follow, click here. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you can, and I'll see you in my next video.